So let's get started. So last week I kind of did an introduction to this new series that we're going to be doing probably for the next 3-4 weeks. So I haven't really found out how long it's going to be. But we're touching on the subject of kind of just broad stroke rational, not radical, well, it can be radical, rational Christianity. So what we're going to be doing is we're just going to take in subjects and kind of digging into them a little bit more. So let's start with some brainstorming. So I'll start with my first kind of question here. What motivates people? What motivates yourself? What motivates others? It could be personal. It can be non-personal. What motivates people? I think I heard money. Is that right? Okay. Let's see my penmanship. All right. It's there. Okay. Money. That's a big one. Yeah. Love. Okay. Fear. I like that one. That was good. A little out of the box thinking. Yeah, absolutely. Fear is going to make you to motivate you to run away. What else? Power. Cool. Yeah, power. Happiness. Yeah. Happy. Faith. Yeah. Strong belief, conviction. Food. Yeah, that's valid. I think there's a lot of, there's obviously a humorous part to that, as well as it's true, but you got to think most of our conflicts are over resources, right? So globally, a lot of our conflicts are over resources, which is food, food, water, oil, things like that. So for sure, yeah. What else?
Reputation.
Okay. Your rep, for sure. And digging into that, Pastor John, who's so nicely dressed this morning, I put it on. I was like, I hope Pastor John doesn't wear his shirt. He did. It was like we're in sync. I love it. Reputation. So why don't you give me a part B to that? What do you? Because you're right. People are motivated by their reputation, but what about their reputation are they actually motivated about? Approval? Yeah. And this could be a couple of different things, but approval for sure. Hell, we got approval ratings with everything, right? What else? It's a good list.
Fame goes with that.
Fame?
Being famous.
Yeah. Recognition, reputation, all those things. Any other ones? Now, obviously, we can dissect some of these if we wanted to. What do we notice about all the short list that we made that encompasses a lot of them? What do we notice about those things? Anything in common? These are motivators, right? So to think about this for a second. All of you wake up every morning and you do things. I hope so, right? We all do things. We all probably do different things, and there's things that we all do similar, right? We all search for food, I'm assuming, right? So that's something we all have in common. Now, some of these things probably play larger roles in some of our lives than others, but we're all motivated to do them. Really what we're starting to dig at is this is what kind of moves us to do anything in life instead of just roll over and die. You know what I mean? And these are all great things. Love, power in a good sense, right? You can seek your health and your strength. Obviously, that can be corrupted pretty easily, but faith, food, happiness, those are all beautiful things, right? You notice how they're all sensations? Because, nobody wants money just to have money, right? You could just get a bunch of monopoly money and be okay. It's not the same. You want money for something, right? The pursuit of something, access to something. You want a lot of commas in your bank check because then you can buy whatever you want to buy. So there's obviously you got to reduce some of those, like fractions, right? Everybody loves reducing fractions, right? But in the end, they're all sensations. So everything that motivates us, or a majority of things that motivates us is sensation-based, right? Think about it just for a second, right? You seek out certain food and not just some gelatinous material because there's a different sensation you're going to get from eating one thing over another, right? So here's a follow-up question to that. Let's see if I can. Did it do it? No. Got to learn some of these controls here. Okay. Are we moved? Can we be moved by solely by truth? Think about this for just a second. Can we be moved solely by truth? Oh, wait, you guys think just a little bit. Yeah, go ahead, Pastor.
Truth is always a truth about something. And I'm just thinking through, like, if it's about something, how do you distinguish be moved by the truth and be moved by the thing that it's about? Which is probably something that would be something connected to a sense perception.
That's a good, foundational premise there, because you're hitting exactly what I want to get at. But how often do we really think about this, right? Because we do things, right, every day, all day long. But it's true. Truth is never in isolation, right? I could give you a truth, right, that pizza will be coming at noon. It's not, but pizza will be coming at noon, right? And just because you know it doesn't mean you're gonna. Is it gonna motivate you to do anything? Not really, unless there's something attached to it. Maybe you're hungry. Maybe you're now reminiscing. It's like, oh, I hope they bought, Hawaiian or Meat Lovers or Supreme or whatever it is. But you're brought with a truth, and then quickly your sensations take the hold of you, right? So the point, and even biblically we can look at this, because many of you are probably familiar with this verse that Christ gave, right, referring to the Pharisees in regarding their worship, right? So Matthew 15, 8 and 9, he says, these people honor me with their lips, right? So they're saying things. And I'm assuming they're saying truthful things. These guys are scholars, right? But their heart, which we know is their affections, are far from, obviously, the connection of what they're saying. And what does Jesus conclude? So we have the right words, no heart. What's the conclusion? He says, in vain. It's not that they don't worship him. It's in vain, completely worthless, completely and utterly worthless. And then what they were doing was teaching the doctrines and commandments of men, right? There is that connection between truth and sensation. And we talked about worship, and I know in classes past and things past, that true, genuine worship is when you have that truth and your heart's affection is caught up into whatever that truth may be, in this case, regarding God, and then what comes out of that is genuine praise and genuine worship. That's the difference, right? So what we've been doing and what we're going to be doing for the next few weeks is we're going to be looking at foundational components of life. So core things about life, right? And then what we're going to be seeing is just how does the Christian viewpoint answer it. But again, we're not just going to stop at just truth, right? Because what we're looking at is that truth only goes so far. We got to go beyond that a little bit and develop that truth a bit, right? So what we're going to be starting today is dealing with theology, or obviously the science regarding God, or the discipline and practice regarding God himself. So starting off, we started this kind of last week, but why is Christianity rational, right? So I'm going to give you an answer. Because it asserts the existence of a personal, monotheistic deity that establishes ultimate reality and imbues it with meaning. Nice, concise definition. Right? Maybe? No? Okay. Anyone overtaken by it? Your body language tells me you're not, right? And that's yeah, there you go. If you would have done that, then you would have messed up my whole setup, Pastor John. But, in reality, think about this. That statement is really incredible, right? But you're confronted with a truth, and you're confronted with a profound truth. But it didn't really do much, did it? At least on first glance, right? So, why not? Right? It loses its effect because the sensation isn't attached to it. So when Philip talked about Christian disciplines, one of the things I know he talked about was meditation, which is huge. Because you can take a truth, especially deeper truths, and you need to meditate on them. You need to think about them. Why? Why do we do that? We know it's good practice. A lot of people say it's good practice. It's been shown to be good practice, but why is it good practice? Why? Anybody do that regularly? Some form of meditation that see a benefit from it? Why is it beneficial? It's evolving the truth. It's bringing practical application, right? It's allowing you to reflect on it. It's bringing your sensations towards it, right? If you're thinking of a gift to get somebody, you're thinking about them, thinking about what's going to be good for them, or what's an ideal gift for them, or anything. You develop truths. You don't just blatantly give them. You develop them, right? So, let's see where I can find it. So let's start this in the negative. So we're going to take the same exact question and we're going to flip it in the negative and see if it's better. Okay? Why does asserting the existence of God establish rationality? What does it do? So let's pause for a second. This is the key point. Because we're going to go over an answer. Many of you may already know the answer. Many of you can articulate some form of answer, which is fine. But it's not only about giving the answer, and this is the point. It's about giving the answer in a way that is appealing, that's effective, right? That engages the sense factor of people. Why? Because what is the first thing we talked about? It motivates people. We have a blanket truth that Christ is the only way to God. Nice blanket truth, very deep, very profound, very impactful. Why isn't the whole world converted? Now, there's obviously spiritual, theological reasons for that, but just looking at it from the subject that we're talking about, there's a separation between, they can know it's true. There's plenty of scholars and universities that they know more about biblical truth than many people in churches. But their sensation, right, their emotions, their hearts are far from the truth that they proclaim to even accept. It's astonishing how many professors will proclaim the authenticity of Scripture. And they're completely skeptics or even atheists at that point, right? There's a separation there. So when we're doing this is the key here. How do we take a truth, right? Why does asserting the existence of God establish rationality? Why? I hope all of you feel that you're rational, right? And I'm assuming all of you believe in God. So why are those two together rational? And some of us may have not even thought about this in our lives, right? But what will carry you through difficult times and what will carry you through difficult convictions or conversations or challenges in life is taking the time to do this.
One of the reasons is because nothing else works.
It's a good one. That's a good one. It's kind of what I have, right? So.
But I don't know that makes anybody feel good that doesn't believe it.
True. And that's why you got to develop something out of that, right? So my quick answer, and Dr. William Lane Craig wrote a great paper. So if you haven't read it, it's very good, very easy to read. It's only like 14 pages, but The Absurdity of Life Without God. So I've used some of his stuff to answer some of this stuff. But life is completely, it's not that it doesn't work. Life is completely absurd, It's absurd without immortality and the existence of God. It's more than just it doesn't work. It's absurd. It makes absolutely no sense to live. Now, that's a pretty profound statement, right? Now, you might get somebody's attention with that, but what are you going to do with it? You got to develop that, right? And this may not be, a coffee house conversation, but even for ourselves, and this is the important thing too, even for ourselves, as we go through life, it's not always going to be easy. And if you don't hold to certain convictions strongly and profoundly, they're going to escape you. And you're going to have either a more difficult time going through something, or you can get lost in it, right? So, let me see where I'm at here. So let's look at this answer. Life is completely absurd without immortality and the existence of God. Does anybody agree, disagree?
It may not be a coffee house
Right.
conversation, but it works in prison ministry.
Definitely see that.
We'll ask
Yeah.
the
I
girls.
get,
How has life gone for you so
Yeah.
far? Has it worked?
that's a good question.
And sitting there, they're ready to listen.
Yeah. The good thing about this is with a little bit of practice and work, you could make this work in most conversations, if not almost all conversations. It's, again, what we talked about in our previous series, it's learning the content enough that you're able to really use it in so many different situations, right? Does anybody know why life is absurd without those two things, immortality and God? You don't have to get too deep, but quick. Yeah, Jen?
How would it exist if something couldn't have come from nothing?
I couldn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Something couldn't have come from nothing.
Yeah, so creation, origin, something couldn't have come from nothing. Logically, that makes no sense. Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else?
There's no foundation.
No foundation for...
Nothing to stand on. But in your conversations.
Yeah. So it goes into meaning, right? And we're gonna touch on that a little bit. I'm sure all of you look at this and you can kind of agree with it to some degree, but the question is, can you explain it? Do you yourself have your own conviction on a statement like this? Because if you do, great. If you don't, it's not that it's bad, it's just something that you can strengthen yourself by understanding this, right? So here's a couple of different key points that are important to come to note. If God doesn't exist, then both man and the universe are inevitably doomed to death. Right? So man, we're biological organisms, and therefore we must die. That's the way it works. Devoid of God, our lives they're just momentary. There's a time we didn't exist, and there's a time that if there is no God and no immortality, there's a time that we won't. We're going from oblivion to oblivion. So no matter what we do in a period span of however many years we're given, it's ultimately worthless. It means nothing in the ultimate sense, right? And the universe, as we know, scientifically, is doomed to die, right? Everything's growing further apart. Everything's going colder and colder. Energy's being used up. The stars will burn out. All matter will collapse into dead stars and black holes. There will be no light, no heat, no life at all. And the only thing that will remain is just corpses of dead stars and galaxies in an ever-expanding universe. Endless darkness in the cold recesses of space. That's it. Scientifically, that is the spoiler of the universe. That's going to be the end. Right? So, what reality does that create then? If that's true. It creates absurdism. And this is actually a philosophy that was mainly pushed forward by Albert Camus, but it's the belief that the universe is irrational and meaningless, and that the search for order brings an individual into conflict with the universe. Everything's absurd. Life, love, all those motivators we talked about, they're absurd to follow. There's no reason to do any of those things because there's no meaning in them. There's no meaning in your own life. And even if your life is of importance in our society, it's ultimately meaningless. It may seem meaningful, but it's ultimately meaningless because we're going from nothing to nothing. Right? So we need to understand that. I mean, that is the alternative. That is the alternative to removing immortality and removing the existence of God, right? Let's see where I can jump here. Questions on any of that? I know it's kind of gloomy. But that is, I mean, you read existentialist philosophers, they're all gloomy. They're all depressing. Yeah, go ahead, Pastor.
Many, the more honest atheist philosophers, recognize it and admit as much.
Mm-hmm.
And, all the way back to like Nietzsche and following that, ultimately, if you take this worldview, there is no meaning. Now, a lot of them would say, well, we just don't like that, but it's true.
Right.
At least the honest ones will admit it.
Right. And John Paul Sartre, who's admitted that there's no point, he said, well, we need to pick a path and follow it and create meaning for ourselves. The problem with that is that you're committing to a life of self-delusion. There's no meaning in it, but you're just creating it for yourself and you're just going to follow that path. It's a very depressing way to view it. But the question is, does the world look like that? We all live in the world, right? Does the world look like that? Do you see people walking around with that type of conviction on the forefront of their minds? No, of course not. So, in there. There's plenty of people who will either deny the existence of God or be skeptical of it or however. I mean, they'll do all those things, but they don't live that way. So now we're getting into the point of how do we communicate this? And this is the key, right? So this is the key little phrase here. If we start to talk to somebody about anything of value, anything of meaning, what should we look out for in those conversations?
Things that they say kind of leads to the fact that they, although they would never admit it, that they really are living like there is a God. They live their lives like there is a God, but they wouldn't admit that.
Right.
I mean, in some respects, even people who are outside of Christ live morally. A lot of people that even though they're not believers will be true to their wives or be honest at work. And so they live in a way like there is a God, but they would not admit it.
Right. Exactly. Right? So when we're conversing with somebody, right, and we're trying to keep a keen eye on an entry point, what makes it difficult to talk to somebody about deeper issues? For any of you? Shut down? They or you? They will shut down, okay. What else? That's good, because it's just true. They'll just shut down the conversation and it won't pursue any further. What else?
Finding a good entry point.
Good entry point, right? So if they'll shut down the daunting task of just finding where to begin, right? What else? What makes it difficult? You ever get somebody yell at you? I was waiting for that one. I did. Plenty of times, actually. And it's not that I deserved it. It's just, that's their response. Or
I think a lot of people don't even want to think about it.
they don't want to think about it, right?
Stay busy enough and
Yeah.
live in the now, and because if you follow those trains of thoughts, they have to deal with stuff.
Right. So they ignore it, right? And then that's kind of what we alluded to last week, was that they live all for their experiences, right? So it displays of, say, passion, right? Whether it's shutting down or sadness or anger or disgust or fear are positive entry points, because we know there's very few people, if any, walking around this earth that truly live as if there was no God and there was no hope after death. They may say those things, but nobody lives that way. So as soon as you get a entry point of or display of passion or emotion for anything, that's their hot button item. So if they're angry, good. I'm glad you're angry about something. I can work with that, right? So what are they angry about? They're angry about, pushing an ideology on somebody. Okay, so you have a sense of justice then. You have a sense of right and wrong. You have a sense of fairness and equality that you think I'm violating now. So therefore, we have a common ground. We just need to build on that. Or if somebody's fearful about something. I have fears too, right? So what are they fearful about? Or if there's a sense of disgust. Okay, you have a sense of order. You have a sense of way something should be. Those are all positives. So a lot of times when we enter into any types of conversations that have a level of difficulty, we psych ourselves out, or we get in our own heads, or we fumble. And what we need to do is switch our mentality so that we look at all those things as positives. Right? I do it all day long. Right? So if again, I sell things. So when we don't have product and you want my one only product, I'm not going to get overwhelmed by arguing with the price of the object, right? So of the car or anything like that. It is what it is. I'm sorry. I can't do anything about it, right? And again, that level of confidence and that level of certainty goes a long way. And it isn't only about matters of faith, it's everything. The way you talk to anybody, whether it's your home life, your personal life, your relationships, anything like that. When you're able to identify those things and keep a calm head, right, because of your conviction and understanding, you can be greatly effective in all of your conversations, no matter what the subject matter may be. Okay?